Alright guys, and here on our news it says Clarity Act support update for XRP holders. Total yes available out of 60 votes needed. So the question is, could 9 missing Senate votes completely freeze the XRP market before August? So imagine standing right at the finish line of a marathon, holding the trophy in your hands, only to watch the stadium lights suddenly shut off. That is the exact tension gripping the entire XRP community right now. Software engineer and crypto expert Vincent Van Code right here shared a breakdown on X, showing that the Clarity Act has mapped out 51 confirmed or likely yes votes. But here is the catch. In the United States Senate, 51 votes isn't enough to cross the finish line. The bill needs a hard threshold of 60 votes to overcome procedural hurdles and pass the floor. With the Senate breaking for its summer recess around August 8, the clock isn't just ticking, it is practically running out of time. Now, I look at this math and I see a massive game of chicken playing out on Capitol Hill. The industry has been begging for legislative framework for years, and while getting 51 senators aligned is a monumental structural achievement, coming off 9 votes short right before a recess creates an immense cloud of short-term uncertainty for assets like XRP that thrive on institutional clarity. So, the next question is, why is the Republican wall holding firm for the Clarity Act? When you examine the current tally, the foundation of those 51 votes comes from nearly unified Republican front. Senator Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming has been a relentless engine behind this bill, continually insisting that a final text must pass before lawmakers leave Washington for August. Alongside her is Senator Tim Scott, pushing the bill through the Banking Committee with a 15-9 vote back in May, and Senator Kevin Cramer recently voiced on Fox Business that lawmakers are almost there, right? And simply must get this done. Even Senate Majority Leader John Thune has signaled a commitment to bring the merged text to a floor vote during this session, regardless of whether a full bipartisan consensus is locked in. Now, here's my opinion. Seeing the Republican caucus maintain this level of cohesion shows that digital asset regulation has become a top-tier priority rather than a side project. However, relying purely on party line strength is a double-edged sword. While it guarantees a strong baseline of around 50 dependable votes, it leaves zero room for error and completely relies on cracking open the opposing party's rank. Now, what caused the sudden shift among key Democratic supporters? This brings us to the core problem stalling the bill's momentum. Back in May, Democratic Senators Ruben Gallego and Angela Alsobrooks provided the crucial bipartisan support needed to advance the bill out of the Banking Committee. Alsobrooks even worked directly with Senator Tom Tillis to craft balanced language regarding stablecoin yields. However, both senators have since pulled back from their initial momentum. Senator Gallego joined a joint statement with 6 other Democrats expressing that the update draft falls short on consumer protection, illicit finance, and market integrity. Meanwhile, Senator Alsobrooks rejected a recently proposed draft, calling its reliance on Department of Justice-only ethics enforcement an unserious offer. Right? Unserious offer. So let's highlight the part. Now here's my opinion. This pullback is a classic reminder of how complex financial legislation becomes once it leaves committee markup and faces the broader chamber. So from my perspective as a market observer, these objections aren't just minor political grandstanding. They reflect deep-seated disagreements on oversight structures. When former allies step back to demand stricter ethics rules, it signals that the price of securing those final 9 votes has just gone up dramatically. Now, how are opposing senators building a wall against the current draft? The resistance doesn't end with oscillating swing votes. A vocal opposition continues to push back hard against the bill as currently written. Senator Elizabeth Warren, the ranking member of the Banking Committee, has maintained her firm opposition, arguing that the legislation caters too heavily to industry interests at the expense of average consumers. Adding to this friction, Senator Chris Van Hollen, and Jeff Merkley recently held press conference explicitly demanding stricter boundaries surrounding public officials' personal dealings with cryptocurrency. When you combine their stance with skepticism from Senators Jack Reed and Tina Smith, the path to finding 9 crossover votes becomes extremely narrow. Now here's my opinion. Observing these dynamics makes it clear that the debate over crypto has morphed into a broader fight over ethics and government transparency. For market participants waiting on regulatory certainty, this push and pull is frustrating. Yet, it highlights that any framework managing digital assets like XRP must survive intense scrutiny if it expects to stand the test of time without being continuously challenged in court. Now, will the impending August recess force a breakthrough or cause a freeze? We are now down to the final wire. A new draft circulated on July 22 tried to address the conflict by adding an ethics provision that sunsets in 2029, requiring regulatory agencies to implement rules within 1 year of enactment. Yet, lawmakers like Senator Alsobrooks quickly dismissed it as insufficient, with Majority Leader Thune reminding reporters that a vote needs to happen in the very near future before the August 8 recess. The Senate is running out of calendar days to bridge this gap. Now, here's my opinion. Deadline pressure is often the only thing that forces politicians to compromise, but it can also lead to total gridlock if neither side blinks. If this bill gets pushed past the August recess, the legislative focus will almost certainly shift toward fall election politics, leaving crypto market structure in a prolonged state of limbo for the remainder of the year. And finally, here is our overall conclusion. The Clarity Act sits at a historical crossroads, with 51 map votes identified by analyst Vincent Van Code right here. The legislative effort has proven it has broad momentum, but the rigid requirement for 60 votes in a polarized Senate leaves it on thin ice. The solid backing from Senate Republicans provides a powerful foundation. Yet, the sudden hesitation from crucial Democrats over ethics, consumer protections, and enforcement mechanisms presents a massive roadblock right before the August recess. Now, for us XRP holders and broader digital asset market observers, these next few days represents a critical inflection point. If Senate leaders can assemble a grand bargain on ethics provisions before August 8, the digital asset space could receive the regulatory green light it has sought for years. If negotiations break down, the industry must brace for continued regulatory ambiguity well into the future. Right? And this finally ends our video. Thank you very much for watching and see you on the next one, or you might just as well check this next recommended video right here.